Cats, cops, and C4. Is this common? Jenny asks Chief Bowman, who raises an eyebrow. A little more clarity, please, is what common? Chief Bowman asked. The breaks in protocol, unusual happenings, and, let's be diplomatic and call it excitement, that seems to follow around Specialist Barnabas in the cases he finds himself in. Not really. Truly. So this is the first time he's been involved in something like this? Jenny asks. No, it's the third incident. How long has he been involved with your department? A couple of months, Chief Bowman replies. A couple of months, and he's been in 3 massive incidents? Police work has a tendency to flare up, and almost every department is underfunded and understaffed on the spires under the top 50 levels. We work together and help each other out. Do you? So he's been called in as backup on other levels and spires? He has, as has everyone else in my station, discounting the accountants and clerks. And even a few of them have gone out to help other precincts, Chief Bowman says, and Jenny nods. Very laudable. These other 2 incidents. I understand that the details may not be relevant to these proceedings, but something about them is. And that would be? Were they solved? They were. Conclusively, with the responsible parties punished for their crimes? Yes. Satisfactorily? Jenny presses. Is there a point to this line of inquiry? Basalash asks. There is, and I'm nearly at it, Your Honor. I beg your indulgence. Jenny replies and receives a nod. So, were these cases solved to satisfaction? Not entirely. The perpetrator of the second incident was placed under community service for their crimes, and Specialist Barnabas was furious about it. I had to calm him afterwards, Chief Bowman says. Did it go further than that? He later confessed to confronting another member of the Undaunted about it and being talked down. So he has a firm sense of justice? Yes, and a temper. Don't we all? Chief Bowman cuts her off with a frown. I don't appreciate smear jobs on dutiful officers. My apologies, I'm not attempting a smear. I'm attempting to probe because I can see a pattern here and it has an unfortunate outcome. Miss Morals, Basalash warns her. Very well, is it possible that Specialist Barnabas, and by extension the Undaunted, are looking for an easy answer to a complicated problem? Possibly. Yes or no, please? No then. Why no when a possibly usually implies an unspoken yes? Jenny pounces on that. Anything is possible. But if the question is on whether it's more likely Barnabas or another Undaunted is going for an easy answer rather than the right answer, I would say no, Chief Bowman states. I see, Jenny states. It clearly wasn't what she was looking for, but she was going to roll with it anyways. But you would agree that Barnabas, much like the rest of the Undaunted, have a talent for finding trouble and finding a definitive answer to it. Yes. Like seemingly now? Yes. Chief Bowman states, and Jenny smiles. Isn't it strange, though, Jenny asks, that a super criminal known for keeping themselves secret and hidden and running away the moment things start looking bad to keep herself safe is suddenly caught with a tower of evidence all neatly piled up, quite literally under her? Smarter people have made dumber mistakes. No one is perfect, and the people that delude themselves into thinking they are make the biggest mistakes of all. Chief Bowman dismisses. Yes, however, her very focus on not getting caught would more likely spell a mistake in having a hard time proving herself as Miss Big than being caught as Miss Big, wouldn't it? Jenny asks in a leading tone. You'd think, but thank you. Jenny cuts her off before she can really hurt her case. One final question before I summarize. Would you say that Specialist Cenk Barnabas is an exemplar of the Undaunted or an outsider? By which I mean, does he act like the Undaunted, or is he kind of odd for them? I would say he is an exemplar as an Undaunted. They strive to the best of their considerable abilities to become the best they can be, and I've seen that time and again. Chief Bowman states with a smile. So to summarize everything so far, a people known for straightforward answers and overreactions due to their, Jenny begins. Objection! Foundation issues. Overreactions were not part of any line of inquiry from myself or the defense. Catty Downshift protests as she stands. Objection sustained. Care to rephrase things, Miss Morals? Basalash asks. Apologies, Your Honor. To summarize, a people with a straightforward mindset due to their military bearing, who have had access to this series of events from the beginning, due to an exemplar of their organization being on the case from the beginning, have laid the blame at the feet of my client despite the very presence of the evidence going against the modus operandi of the person they are accusing her of being? As I explained, yes or no, Jenny insists. Yes, Chief Bowman admits. I see. No more questions, Your Honor. Jenny says, smiling up at Judge Basilash, who is looking thoughtful. Is there anything further needed from this witness? Judge Basilash asks, and there is a response in the negative. Very well then. Thank you for your time, Chief Bowman. The Koiran woman slides off the chair and easily walks back to her place in the audience. May I call my next witness to the stand, please? Kadi Downshift asks, and Judge Basilash nods. Specialist Cenk Barnabas, please take to the stand. I'll be back shortly. He promises Miss Frost as he rises up. There's some rapid typing from Forsyth and Spike about how she seems to be agitated and afraid when he walks away from her. He takes to the stand and offers a smile that thankfully calms Amy a little. I understand that in human court proceedings, one is normally asked to swear on a holy text, usually the Bible, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or some other variant of oath. Basilash asked before bringing out a Bible from under her podium. Are you willing to do so here? I am, he says, taking the Bible from her and setting it on the podium in front of his seat and setting his left hand on it while his right crosses his chest to be held over his heart. I, Specialist Cenk Barnabas of the Undaunted, do so swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Thank you, Your Honor. That wasn't needed, Specialist Barnabas, but it is appreciated, Kadi says, walking up to the podium and letting off the shrinking device a bit to start to tower over him again, and he gives her an odd look for that. Now, I understand that despite being part of this case from the beginning, you actually have a somewhat limited influence over it, correct? Yes. What parts were you part of? I was there at the beginning, but the moment Miss Frost became part of things, I was effectively on unending protective detail. Bodyguard work. Were there any gaps in this protective detail? Kadi asks him. Only when she was on the Dauntless, and therefore surrounded by an army of well-trained friendly soldiers, and in thoroughly controlled and safe territory. And what happened during these gaps? The first time I continued police work only to be attacked in the middle of an investigation. After dodging numerous railgun rounds, myself and my family found ourselves face to face with numerous bomb threats, a hostage situation, and destruction of property with intent to cause harm, which ended abruptly when the mercenary in question abruptly decided that they weren't being paid enough and sent a single message stating that they were leaving and left. Really? Is this normal? Minding my own business and something odd happens? Well, kind of. I am on loan to a police station, so I get sent into many high-stress situations where people tend to make really poor decisions or have made a really poor decision. I'd say you'd have a much harder time finding an officer of any kind, be it military, police, mercenary, or otherwise, that doesn't have an exhaustive and long list of the ways they have personally seen people in situations be strange, short-sighted, or even outright stupid. Oh, I know. I was one of those strange situations, if you recall, Kadi says, and Cenk snorts before chuckling. I do. I very much do. Was there anything else that happened while you were not directly protecting Miss Frost? We tried to follow some leads into Miss Big and came across a bit of a dead end. A teleportation beacon that had the files around it deleted was followed back to the manufacturing company. But there was so much that had rotted away for so long, the information came up as useless. I see. Now, why was Miss Comet on your suspect list to begin with? What drew your attention to her? Kadi asks. The main factor was just how much she stood to benefit from Miss Frost's death. And what does she get? On the low end, trillions of credits? If she's lucky and does nothing else but sit down and let things fall where they may, potentially hundreds of trillions of credits. A sum that exceeds the domestic revenue of some entire planets, Cenk says, and he can almost feel Basilash's eyes on him. Really? That's a great deal of motive. Law enforcement offers substantially less for bounty of a criminal to be brought in dead, Cenk states. Objection! Bounty hunting pricing has no bearing on this case. Sustain. Specialist Barnabas, keep your additional commentary to yourself unless prompted, please. Ma'am, yes ma'am. That's your honor? My apologies, Your Honor. To get back on target before being informed that Miss Comet was Miss Big, What did you think her relation to Miss Big was? Employer. I assumed that Miss Comet had paid a criminal to kill the one person standing in her way of a massive amount of money, Schenk says before opening his mouth and deciding that it was additional commentary. You were about to continue. Please do so. Well, if you're killing someone for a piece of a large fortune, it wouldn't be a big step to try and frame others in order to get their pieces as well. My initial assumption was that we'd probably get a definitive answer as to who was doing what, with a sudden rush of people pointing the blame at one another. The entire suspect list of businesswomen struck me as the kind of people who could make meticulous and devious plans, but would panic and start making mistakes if things started going off script. And multiple plans crashing into each other is one of the best ways for things to go off script. Very interesting. So until your fellows discovered the evidence under Miss Comet's house, you thought she was merely corrupt and greedy and not a murderess? I thought it possible. However, we managed to get an ear into Miss Big's organization, and the danger level was ramped up enormously when she handed off a mind slayer to one of her subordinates for use against an undaunted, possibly myself. That's a very serious allegation. Has the device been captured and contained? Basilash states, looming over him. It has. It's also been encased in transparent resin to prevent casual skin-to-skin contact, rendering it mostly impotent. Chunk answers, Your Honor, I wish to see this piece of evidence. Have it brought before me. Would you like to see the second as well? Is it similarly contained? Yes. Then, yes, Basilash says before leaning back. Are these pieces of evidence immediately available? No, they will take several minutes to retrieve, Kati states. Then continue with the questioning until they arrive. Of course, Your Honor, Kati says before turning back to Chink. Now, Specialist Barnabas, it has been implied that you are potentially ignoring evidence to suit a personal narrative. However, you have stated that you were in fact not part of the accusation beyond drawing up an initial suspect list. For the sake of brevity, we will skip you listing out the names and motives of the people on that initial list. But I must ask, how long was it? How many other people did you think were potentially responsible for the attacks on Miss Frost? We had two lists. The first was the people would directly benefit enormously. Miss Comet was actually fourth on the list of 5 with both motive and means to try and kill Miss Frost. And the second list? People of lower priority, evidence of corruption, acting in bad faith and other such misdemeanors that might have been signs of criminal activity, but stood to gain relatively little. That one was very long and ultimately could have been continued to entire percentiles of the world's population. So what you're saying is that you didn't so much home in on her as home in on a circle of highly suspicious individuals, and the first one you went to seemingly panicked and exposed themselves as the main perpetrator? Yes. That's very Kati is cut off as the door to the courtroom is knocked upon before opening, revealing 4 undaunted soldiers carrying an object with gravity tethers between them. The object resembles a safe and is clearly reinforced and heavily secured. I can sense the axiom madness from here. Those are mind slayers, Basilash says in a forcibly calm tone with an underlying ocean of fury.